just going to start recording because I hate when people start recordings and like they're like, "Hi, how are you?" and like it's disingenuous because they've been talking for like 15 minutes. I mean, we've been volume testing, but like we haven't actually like said hi to each other or anything yet. So I feel like it.
Before you do that, though, quickly, I remember signing up for this a minute ago, but like, what exactly is like the whole? I have like an idea of what the idea is, but
Yeah.
like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I that was actually the first thing that I was going to talk about, which is that
Okay, well then we
um,
could. I just didn't want to seem unprepared.
no, totally. I think that my sort of like idea for this is that within my community, what I sort of try to create is like the same vibe as like an open game night where like every weekend people can like come in and like play like board games, so to speak, and it's fun and nice. And so my idea with this is that it is like we played board games and had a sleepover, and everyone fell asleep, and we're up at 3 a.m. and we have a late night conversation. And that late night conversation just so happens to be about, as like 3 a.m. conversations often are, just so happens to be about things that are, I don't know, like important to you, or things that like you're trying to work on, things that you're struggling with, like whatever. It's really sort of, especially because you're the first one to do this with me. It is very much sort of we get to sort of like define it together. Um, so the first like couple of things that I wanted to establish is just because like uh, we've never really had like a one-on-one voice conversation. I just wanted to make sure. Do you have like a name that you would prefer I call you? Like any like permutation of your name or
I
anything?
guess just stick with Bunny.
Bunny. Okay, all right, you got it. Bunny. And also, I have a notepad up just so that like I can like take notes in case I want to like bring things together in my mind at the
Cool,
end. So
fine
if
by
you
me.
hear me rapidly typing, it's not because I'm like not paying attention to you. It's because I'm paying so much attention to you that I want to write it down. Um, and then is there anything in particular? You had mentioned one thing, and I can like remind you of it if you would like. But I just wanted to see like, is there anything right now that you'd be particularly interested in talking about?
I mean, I have in perspective being someone in my work, like my whole job is to like exude a certain persona and be really confident and have all these things. I have like insecurities and like things that have led to that. Like I won't like get super into it. But like low key for the last year, I've been talking to someone that's in the military that I've known for like 6 years. We were like kind of talking about getting married because we had made a joke. He had made a joke because he's a medic. Like I should go marry him because he had gotten divorced. Like it was really bad. But he's like, I can get out of the barracks and like you could get spouse pay, but like also financial aid. And it's really funny because I used to sleep with him and his girlfriend before they got married. But like I'd always kind of liked him, and he was like, "But wait, do we actually like each other?" So like homeboy literally asked me for my ring size and what kind of diamonds I liked a month ago, and like he spent a whole bunch of time with me down in December. But 2 weeks ago, like right before town hall, he was like, "Hey, I gotta be like honest with you. I started talking to this girl on base like earlier in the year, and like it's official now because I asked her out, so like I can't keep like flirting with you." Like 2 weeks before that, the man was asking for my ring size. I was like
Whoa,
absolutely blindsided, and like
whoa.
that's been really hard for me. Really, I felt like really secure having a partner that I knew, like especially somebody that's immunocompromised, like understood everything that I was going to go through and was going to be able to help me. Like it was just kind of a kick in the face because I really thought that I was moving to Kentucky at the end of the year to move on base with him. And we were going to get married and all that. Like I'm in a very weird space about like dating and talking to people because like I am so worried about like all the baggage that I bring, and like I can't present any of that in my job. I have to be like, I am the hottest shit. There's nothing wrong with me. You need to give me everything.
Right. Huh. Cool. Great place to start. So, I'm gathering my thoughts for a second.
Good.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to ask you about is like, um, when this guy who was like, "Hey, let's get married," and then all of a sudden was like, "Hey, I asked another girl out." Like, what happened for you internally? Like what was what were the feelings? What were the thoughts? Like, what all was going on in your body and mind?
I've had a lot going on. Like the first thing was like, oh my god, this is overwhelming on top of everything else I'm going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it was like shock, and then because the thing is, he was in a really bad relationship. Like his ex-wife, like they started dating in sophomore year of high school, but the second they got married and they were on a military base, she started being like, "You're gonna do this, or I'm gonna divorce you. You're gonna give me this, or I'm gonna divorce you. You're gonna let me sleep with this person, or I'm gonna divorce you." She would like literally hit him in his face. Like she was just abusive wife.
For sure.
So I was chill with the fact that he didn't want to like put a label on things, and I had never been like insecure about it or thought any of that stuff. I thought we were really solid. Like I didn't push the whole marriage thing. Like I kept telling him, I got vaccinated, I was supposed to start going up on weekends to visit him on vacation. That's what the plan was. And if that all went well, Seth and I were going to get married before we actually wanted to get married so that I could live on base with him by the end of the year. So it was a major blindside. I could have understood if he had talked to me about it like back in January or February and been like, hey, like I met this person on base and I think it just makes a little bit more sense for me to be with somebody that like understands my lifestyle because they live in the military and they're close, which is like totally understandable. And like I love Seth. I've known Seth for like 6 years. He was a good friend to me. He was somebody that I confided in a lot. From the fact that we flirted or whatever, that wasn't important. I cared about him more as a person than anything. So I could have been happy for him. But the fact that like 2 weeks before this, he was asking me my ring size and like it talked about all the important stuff. Like I want to adopt because I don't want my kids to have my health issues. I don't think it's fair for me to like want my own biological kids so bad that I like risk them having within their life. There's so many kids that could use a good parent. He was okay with that. And I had to be okay with the fact that he's an emergency like combat medic or like on some special team where they could call him in the middle of the night and in 8 hours he could be gone for 3 months. I might not be able to talk to him. And that's something that I was ready to accept. Like we had gone all the major stuff. Yeah. So it was definitely like shock. Like the first like day and a half. It was just like this like, and the other thing is I haven't gone to school for the technician. Like I want to do like coding and stuff. And the military would have paid for all my schooling, and that was like a huge weight off of my shoulders, and that's what I was assuming we were gonna do. I was also like, oh, all of my plans ripped out from under. This is something I have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean that's gotta hurt like an incredible amount. Have or are you still in shock, or has it transitioned to something else at this point?
It's a little bit, but a lot of it is now turned into like if I cry, I'm okay. I promise. I'm emotional.
No, I on these 3 a.m. talks, like I used to have these 3 a.m. talks like in person with like in person friends, and for these 3 a.m. talks, I sort of pride myself. If I make you cry, I feel like I did a good job. So like no shame. I think that crying is literally catharsis. So if you like like need to take a second, like grab some tissues, like please by all means. There's no shame about crying here.
So I have emotional back. Obviously everybody does. But some of my stuff is a little much for. I was physically assaulted twice in my life, and like the second time it happened, I was pregnant and lost the baby, so it was like a lot. And for a long time, I could like when I was in high school, I couldn't even sit on the same couch as my. I couldn't take being that close to another human. I used to like leave class 5 minutes early to change before calls because I would have literal panic attacks in the hallway. And like I've gotten a lot better, but I don't like crowded places. I don't like people stopping in front of me, and I don't like people touching me when I know it's gonna happen. But like I'm not fun to go out to clubs, or like I don't go out to shows as much as I used to. Like even like the grocery store, if I have to go with somebody else and like I have to stop and wait for them and I don't feel like I can just dodge around people, I get panicky. And like that's its whole own thing to deal with. And like the fact that like I'm not, men at least, been assaulted by men. I am not physically touchy or like intimate early on because it's hard for me to let that trust go.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like being a chronically ill person, I, and it's like not even like a super common, like it, action that happens to me is super common, but somebody having it frequently and for no reason is not. So I have tried to explain to EMTs that are coming to pick me up to take me to the hospital what's going on, and they don't understand. To try to get a person that may not have a lot of medical knowledge, even if they do, to like understand what is wrong with me enough to understand how serious it is, but not freak the fuck out of them is really hard. And like, I have a hard time making friendships because people will be like, nope, too much for me. I don't want to have to worry about that. No, I don't want to demonize those people because everybody has their own right to decide what they can emotionally take in their life. If that's something that's too stressful for you, I get that. Not everybody has to like me. Like, imagine being worried about that and then trying to find a partner. Yeah. Not only was Seth like understanding of all my medical issues, he was a medic. So I felt safe. I felt like no matter what happened, I know how to take care of her. He would even say shit like, because what happens is, think of like when dads pass out and deliver, see needles or blood and pass out. It's your brain's response. It's kind of like a fight or flight thing. It essentially drops your blood pressure really rapidly out of nowhere, and that's why you pass out. And instead of happening because of stressful situations like that, it happens to me all the time, and I have to take medication to like stop it from happening. Sometimes it can still kick through if like the fight from my brain is hard enough. So like not only having someone that's like okay with it going on, he like made jokes about how like he would never want to see me sick. He was like looking forward to the day that like we were watching TV and then I get up to go to the bathroom and 15 minutes later he hears me calling and has to bring me my medicine and he can lay down on the floor with me and put his legs up like I have to and make fun of me. And like that's all I've ever wanted. Like that's all I've ever wanted was for someone to not feel like they had to like cradle and baby me what they were doing. And like as much as I care about him and him as a friend, like it hurts more having that comfort and that security.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so like what I'm hearing and what you're talking about is that you have all of these like barriers to connection. Like not only can you not connect with people because of abuse that you've suffered, but also because of like your physical condition. And so then like you had finally found somebody who you felt like could really sort of like fulfill all those things. And then like all of a sudden it just got for like no explainable reason.
There was like no warning. Like I'm not trying to be like, I mean this channel is lewd, so anybody that doesn't understand that can get out of here. But like the boy was sending me nudes like 2 days before, so like literally zero warning. Like he gave every sign to think that he was still into me. We were fine, and he couldn't have just been talking to this girl for like 2 weeks, a month, and like decided to date her or something. It sounded like he'd been talking to her since like February. The way that he put it, he's like, we've been talking for like several weeks, like since after I saw you. Like I kind of met her a little after that, which was like end of December, so it had to have been like late January or February, whatever. Like the fact that like it had gone on for so long, and he was already talking to her. He must have already been talking to her when he asked me what my ring size was. But like to be going on like that's like, but if you're like talking to somebody else and considering else and then telling somebody else that you want to marry them, it's just a lot. And like I feel bad for the girl because like does she know her boyfriend was promising to marry another girl before they got together?
Right. And that's sort of one of the first thoughts that came to mind is that you know, like I always like to sort of like have like as much of a story as I can. Like I don't like to like pass judgment necessarily before I know the whole story. But what I will say is that like if this guy was in an abusive situation, it is very common that people who find themselves in abusive situations over and over and over again because they start to look for those they start to look for that feeling, because that feeling feels familiar, even though it doesn't feel safe. The familiarity of it feels safe, and so the concept that it reminds me of is called McDonaldization, which is that people don't want a good burger; they want the same burger. And so why I'm saying this is because I think that I in my life have also suffered with like people, like leaving for inexplicable reasons that I don't understand. And I think that for me, having understanding can help a lot and can, you know, make me feel better and sort of like offer me some closure. And so like obviously I don't know for sure why, but what I can say is that I think that it's a very strong possibility that this his name was Seth, right?
Yeah, I think that I mean him and his wife only separated in early 2020, and they'd been together. He's like 23 now, since he was a sophomore in high school, like 16, 17. Like I mean I know you and Birdie have literally been together forever, but like it's a while, and like he went into the military with her. He was like the serious relationship, not as an adult, but like not only like seeking bad patterns, but just acting irrationally in general. I really
Right.
do believe that he cared about me a lot, and I don't demonize him because he was so good to me for so many years. I don't think
Totally.
that this like one thing defines his character necessarily.
Yeah.
I think he was debating between, do I stay with the person that like makes me feel comfortable, that I've known forever, or do I like, because we had also discussed something that it was weird that we didn't have like that new spark of a relationship ever. It was like we'd known each other for so long and like already kind of been into each other, even though like it wasn't a thing we could do because he had a girlfriend, but we did have a physical relationship. So it was very strange, but I can imagine like a spark with somebody new, and he's really into fitness. So like this girl works out every day like he does, and she's already in the military and she lives on base with him. So I can see where it seems like the more practical option to date her. I think he waited so long because he didn't want me out of his life. I didn't
Yeah.
let him get away with that. He told me kind of like I've been dating, like I've been talking to this girl. It's official now, so I can't lie to you. You like I hope you will still be in my life as a friend. Like I care about you. I don't want you out of my. It was like I understand like that it was hard for you. It must have been like hard for you to come for me, like come to me, and like I could have been understanding of this. He didn't literally ask me my ring size 2 weeks ago, and like
Right.
have me discuss with my mom that like I would be flying home when you were on deployment, and like we didn't discuss like having kids and all that. Like you, like there's a difference between like holding your options open and like laying it on thick with someone. So
Right.
I was like, you just like blindsided the fuck out of me, and like not only that, like you in the end of the day delayed because you were uncomfortable with the idea of the confrontation. And in doing that, you hurt me more by waiting because you chose to be selfish with your own emotion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredibly hard. And so it sounds like um it sounds like you do feel like even though like it came out of nowhere, you do feel like you sort of have an understanding of like why he made the decision that he did, even though
Yeah,
it
it's been like
feels
3 weeks
awful.
now, and I talked to a therapist about it a little bit. She,
Yeah.
she trashed on military men kind of hard, and I was like, it's not just because he's a military guy. Okay? But they do have the complex of let me marry you and move you on base. It's like a thing. So,
Sure. Yeah.
like at first, like it was like it was just like I was too much for him. It was too much of like an effort for him to be with me. Like in general, like I have a history of like I've only had 3 times that somebody like actually called me their girlfriend,
Mm.
and like one time was when I was 17, about 6 months. I would have gotten out of that relationship earlier if he hadn't like blackmailed the shit out of me. It's like my mom's cool with like me smoking medically now, but she wasn't for a really long time. He was like threatening to tell my mom that I smoked and then lie about a whole bunch of other things that I was doing to mess up our relationship.
Wow.
And I finally ended. This kid was 20. I finally ended it because he put hands on me. Like he used to track my phone, call me and blow me up, and like pull up at my friends' houses. Didn't let me have guy friends. And like I was at my friend's house watching E3. Showed up, screamed in the middle of the neighborhood, made a commotion, made me get in the car with him. When we got back to the house, he smacked me in my face and told me I should never disrespect him like that again. that's when I finally called it off. And like my mom knew when I called her crying and told her the kid hit me that nothing was going to come out of his mouth was going to be true. I'd like blowing me up for days, blowing my mom up for days, came to like all my family on Facebook trying to lie about me. It was a lot. Other two relationships were long distance relationships with women that cheated on me. So I've been like my entire life, it's been like some like people talk to me, hold me out until they like find a girlfriend or like just like keep me until they're like moving or doing something. So like it was really nice for like the last pretty much year that I've been talking to him. Like somebody who's ready to make a serious commitment.
Yeah.
Like not just my girlfriend, like I will marry you, move in with me, I want to have children with you. And then it's like other girl.
Yeah. It's interesting because I very much try to avoid like putting people in boxes. Like I don't think that it serves much. I think that trying to like see people as people is typically sort of the best route. And I do wonder if what you said about him being a military man and how like for for military men, like, hey, like marry me and move on base is sort of just a thing. I wonder if like those kind of conversations don't feel as heavy as they do for like, you know, civilians for lack of a better word.
Because when he came out in December and we spent a couple days in a hotel together, he literally said, "Let's go to a courthouse and get married so you can move back with me in February." Like straight up, he's like, "If I like fast forward shit, I can get you the vaccine before you're supposed to get it. Like, let's get married while I'm down here." So like my friends joke, they're like, "You should have done it then, so he couldn't have left."
I think you probably actually dodged a bullet. You know what I mean? Like
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, like because had you done that, you then would. I mean, I don't see this as like. I don't see many things as like one-time occurrences. I usually see things as patterns, and so like if you know something would have come up with this guy, and it would have been much harder had it been sort of, you know, sealed with
relocated my life and then relocate my life.
Right. Although you would have been in Kentucky, which would be cool.
I know, I can come and find you.
Okay, so there's a couple of different sort of avenues that I think would be cool to talk about. One is there's three. The first is what you said about like within sex work having to be like perfect. Because I think that I'm just going to list these out and you tell me which one sort of resonates with you most. The second one is sort of the like long line of abuse that you've suffered with. Like it sounds like it's been your entire life. There's been abuse throughout your life. And the third one is not being able to connect with people for a multitude of reasons. Which, if any of those, sort of like pop out to you?
I have really good ideas, and I'm happy to talk about any. There's one specific that work best for what you're going for.
Please don't think of this as like me creating content that I want to sell. Like this is a way in which I'm trying to like provide value to people in my community, and in this particular instance, the person that I'm trying to provide value to is you, and that's my sole focus. That's all I care about. So so whatever you feel like would provide you the most value, whatever you feel like would be the most helpful for you. You might be like, Tech, you're not gonna provide me any value. You're not gonna help. Like that might be a thought in your brain, and if that is the case, please let's talk about that. But if there is something in your mind where you're like, oh, like maybe like we could talk about this and like delve into it a little bit, and it might help, let me know.
I mean, I know. So touching on, I'm probably gonna touch on everything, jump back between things, but touching on like trauma, like when I I got assaulted for the first time when I was 14. I got assaulted for the second time about a year later when I was and the first time that I got assaulted, I told one person that I used to like hang out in a friend group of like emo 30, 30 emo kids that would like walk around together like through the mall and shit. Like I told one, and then her sister heard me talk to her, and she had a big ass mouth, and told everybody else. And everybody had different accounts, right? My friends like tried to be good friends, I guess, and like show up on him and be like, "We heard you did some shit. What the fuck happened?" And like 19, 14, I had audibly told other people that I thought he was cute. And he like told everybody at once that like I consented to everything and I was lying because I was ashamed about it. And everybody heard his story at once and then started talking to each other and being like, "Oh, I heard this, but I heard this from Amanda, but I heard this about Amanda." So like I essentially lost all of my friends and was told that I lied about being and then the next time it happened, I didn't tell anyone because I was like, no, this
Didn't go so well last time when I did that. Right.
So, like, I only told one person because I had to confide in somebody when I realized I was late. And my friend went and bought me a present. I didn't know how to do it without my parents finding out, and I didn't want to get in trouble, so I did it at her house. I did 2 of them, so I knew I was pregnant. And, like, I have PCOS, so I have really hard periods. Like, a miscarriage is a whole nother thing. Like, it really hurts, and it can go on for days or hours. So, like, I know what happened to my body. And it moved maybe, like, a year after that happened, like, the year after in, like, school. So, like, the only person that knew about it had left. And I'm trying to think of where I was going with this. The first time I opened up about it to someone, I told it to one of my friends in 10th grade, so I must have been like 17, at school. Somebody overheard me, so I got called down to the guidance office, and the social service worker told me she was sorry it happened to me. I shouldn't talk about those things in school because it makes other people very uncomfortable. It's not a topic that's meant to be discussed in.
God.
So, like, I was told by somebody that's supposed to be an emotional support adult, I was doing the wrong thing by talking.
Yeah.
I was making other people uncomfortable with what was happening.
Right.
So, like, I never wanted to talk about it to anyone. And I had this amazing teacher my senior year who was a creative writing teacher. And she had, like, the most beautiful atmosphere for her class. Like, kids talked about, like, abuse, drug abuse that they were going through, like, depression, suicidal thoughts and stuff. And, like, as long as it wasn't something that she, like, legally would have had to report it because she was worried about, like, say whatever you want in her classroom and doesn't leave that classroom. And I, like, the first day, like, the first big assignment that we had something called, like, a stream of consciousness. Yeah. Like, she had us do a stream of consciousness of, like, things that we hate. And, like, I wasn't thinking, so I wrote rapists among the things. And, like, I hard scribbled it out. I was like, nope, this is not the thing. This is not the thing. So she got the paper, she pointed at it, and she was like, whatever this is, that one.
She's good.
Whatever it was. Like, well, shit. And I hate you. I was essentially like, I hate you for, like, XYZ reason. Like, you have no idea what, like, lasting effects you have on people. Like, for so many years, I literally wanted to, like, zip off my skin and take it off because it just felt dirty. I felt, like, disgusting. I didn't want to touch myself. I didn't want to look at myself because I felt like my skin and my flesh was violated, and it was just, like, a nasty thing. Because the sex and the physical touching that had happened to me was so nasty. It took so long to get over that. And I, like, will never, like, be able to thank her enough for, like, telling me it's okay to talk about it. Because talking about these things has helped me so much, and it continues to help. I think it's so important for other people to hear about it from people that they wouldn't necessarily expect it to come from. Because, like, anybody that knows me in chat, like, I'm pretty sassy and I'm pretty confident, and I have, like, an ego about me. And, like, part of that is, like, me, and then part of that is, like, me overcompensating a little bit because, like, that's just what I've done for a really long
Right.
but it, like, especially like with sex work. So we'll get back to that.
Real quick, I'm gonna raise my
You
hand.
like
I'm gonna raise my hand real quick
that.
and just ask, like, I just want to make sure, like, in terms of boundaries, like, this is something that like, I'm planning to post publicly, and so I
Yeah,
just
that's
want to
just
make
why I'm not
sure.
having you use my actual first.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I understand that. I'm just not. That's the reason I'm having you not use an actual first name.
For sure, for sure. Okay, I just want to make sure that like your face and, like, and you publicly talking about, like, that you were okay with that.
I appreciate it.
Okay, okay. All right, please continue. Please go on.
So I started as a cam, transitioned to dom work online when I mean, I'd always been a switch in like personal life, and I've personally been studying BDSM and shibari since I was 13 years old. So, like, especially when the pandemic hit, it just became such an outlet for me, along with the fact that I realized I made a lot more money than camming did.
Yeah.
But, like, even when you're a cam girl, and I think especially sometimes like that, like, anyone in the sex industry, like, your clients don't want to hear about you having bad days. Your clients, 99.9% of the time, don't want to hear about your damage. And, like, don't understand why you're so upset when you push certain boundaries because they have no idea what's happened to you. And, like, it also presents this idea of, like, toxicity that, like, nothing is ever wrong with these people and they're always okay and it's like a fantasy, and like that I'm always happy and I always want to like show out for everyone and all that kind of stuff, because that's not what it is. And like that breaks the fantasy. I feel like being more realistic and remembering that these people are people like helps break down the stigma around like what you should aspire to be and what is attractive. Is like it's not attractive to be broken. It's not attractive to have problems, which is why your customers don't want to hear about it. So like I've like a handful of times posted about my health because some people have been really great, like, and are very understanding about like what it's like physically, something like medical bills that like you're gonna need the money. But like nobody wants to hear that you had a bad day. Nobody wants to hear that like somebody pissed you off and was like pushing your limits or like wasted a whole bunch of your. They just want the illusion, whatever it is from you. If it's a girlfriend experience, they want a happy girlfriend that's doting on them and like never fucking cares about any of the dumb shit they say. If it's a dominatrix, they want like a stern woman or like a bossy woman that's gonna brat to them and like only be on top of like serving them out. But like it is very rare that I find clients who actually want to conversate with me as a human and not just as my person.
Right, right. Because essentially what you're selling in sex work is fantasy, right?
Exactly. And like people forget that. And I think like the idea of like amateur porn helped a lot with like all kinds of body types and different people. Because like a lot of the girls that I work with that have the higher follow counts are like BBW women, and I fucking live for that because for so long all you saw in porn were women fucking big with like a tan and blonde. Da, 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 da. So
Right.
I mean that helps, but like you still, I get that like the whole idea is a fantasy, literally what you're selling. But like I don't expect someone to always like want to be like superhuman with me, but people treat you differently because they forget that you're human.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
I
the thing that becomes a problem.
yeah, totally. And I apologize if my communication came across that way. It was not. I was not suggesting that is how it should be. Um, I I think that there is a disconnect um, between sex and people right now, because I don't know, I don't know exactly why. I think a lot of it has to do with because of how repressed we are, but that people like, like, demonize sex workers and demonize and like, don't treat sex workers as human, and then they go and like jack off to porn, and but think that it's abhorrent to like charge for sex or like anything like that. Like, it's really a big like hypocrisy. And so some of my favorite like sex workers that like I follow on Twitter and things. Now, granted, I don't know. I don't I've like no inkling into the like complexities of this industry. So please, like, I'm here to learn. But like, some of my favorite sex workers that I follow on like Twitter and stuff, they I will often see them talk about not necessarily like that they had a bad day, but they'll talk about the value that they place in people who see their imperfections as strengths and not weaknesses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do
I
you feel
didn't,
about
I
that?
didn't mean to sound like I was taking what you said any like
Okay,
I
okay, good. I just
no,
wanted
no, no,
to
no, absolutely.
you know me.
But like that's what
I'm
it is. Cause
I'm
like with my, especially like being the dominant, like I am like a generally dominant person. Like I'm always one just don't really hold my tongue and like whatever sake. Like I will generally point shit out. I was always the kid to like answer questions. And I enjoyed talent shows and shit. So like I'm not like a recluse, but
right.
obviously like even to like the dom persona that I have is a headspace. It's a fantasy and it's me knowing what my clients are looking for and leading because like especially like in findom like they want you to say I want to take all of your money and make you like do horrible things to get money and eat it off the streets. Like I want you that broke. I want to ruin your life. I would never actually want to do that to someone.
Right.
I cut subs off because I thought they were spending too much what their monetaries are like and I don't want them to be. I would never be comfortable knowing I made a sub have an issue paying rent. But like, I gotta pretend like I want to take every fucking cent you own and like pop your testicles that they're like fucking gone. Like I gotta act like that. But is that who I am all the time? No.
Right. Right. And so like the question then is like how do we bridge the gap between you being able to provide that fantasy and then at the same time um not feel completely like objectified and not cared about and that you
Another one thing for like most sex work I've come into is like being understanding that we have lives and other things going on. Like when you
right.
message us and then 5 minutes later you're blowing us up because we didn't back yet. Like that's not cool. Like I'm a human. I have a life. I'm doing things. Or like if you order a custom and like I'm like a day late on it because like it happened. Like my mom got hit by a car and I was supposed to have a custom done. And I was like, I'm literally taking my mom out of the hospital. Like I can't do this for you today. And the dude was super understanding. And you know what? I extended his custom by a minute because I appreciated him being understanding that I'm a human and things happen to me. And like, you shouldn't expect anything extra for being a good person. But it really goes a long way with a lot of girls. Like, you have no idea like how pushy people can be, and people assume that we're like content creating machines, and like this is all we do with our day, and we're like sitting around in lingerie waiting for you to hit us up. But like,
Right.
that's not what it is, homie. Like when
Right.
you give us like the common decency of understanding like we are people, like sometimes we don't meet deadlines, sometimes we have things going on, sometimes we don't respond right away, like it goes so far. And I think that's like the first step in bridging the gap and probably the biggest.
Yeah. Yeah. uh So the biggest sort of like common thread throughout all of this for me, and you tell me if it resonates for you too, is that um you can never you never feel heard. You never like every time you talk, every time you do something, you end up becoming either an object or like something to ridicule or something that is shut down. And I guess what I would like to try to do in some way is to um it's so interesting because you are such like a powerful woman. Like you do so, like you hold yourself so well. But I think that there is that, like you were saying, some of that is sort of like overcompensation. And I guess the piece that I'm curious about is like in terms of all of those things, like during the long line of abuse and like just constantly being uh, forked over for everything, like anytime you talked about it. And you did mention that your creative writing teacher was sort of an outlet there and sort of helped you process that stuff. And then you did also mention that you have a therapist now. Is that is that going well in terms of allowing you to like feel heard and like process those things?
I've actually been in therapy since I was 12.
Okay.
It has been a long ride.
Yeah.
Like depression and bipolarism runs really heavy in my family. My dad's bipolar, and there was like a time that my dad left my house like on and off for 2 years because his mood swings were so bad that he couldn't be around my sister. And like at that time, I was always like a really like I don't mean to toot my own horn. I've always been a smart kid. I've always been somebody that like got along better with adults than kids my age. Like I was a teacher's pet because none of the other kids wanted to hang out with me. You know, this human, this adult is so cool. Um, and like I felt like my dad was the only one that understood like why my mood was all over the place and why I felt so isolated. And then all of a sudden, at like 9 years old, he was and like I was so young that I didn't have a concept of what I was doing, but I had seen on TV if you took a bunch of pills, you didn't wake up. And I knew that I was sad enough that I didn't want to keep doing what was happening. So I took like an ass load of ibuprofen and I ended up throwing up and I was fine. But like, I made a suicide attempt for the first time at 9 years. So I started therapy really young. I started medication really young. And been dealing with like my own personal like physically chemical imbalance that like messes its own shit up. Like stuff has obviously come down the road. I've never really been someone that had a lot of physical friends. Like I've always found more comfort in like the online weirdos that I make friends with.
Weird.
But like I got picked on in school. Like it was bad sometimes. I got physically pushed into trash cans. I had people threaten to kill me. Like I just never connected with kids, and I feel like that's part of what leads to like my connection issue apart from like everything I'm going through. But because I was rejected for so long,
Yeah.
I like assume that people aren't going to want to connect with me and like comprehensively cut off before I get hurt because I don't want to have to go through that, even though I haven't even given a patient a chance sometimes.
Right.
But I don't know. It's a lot of like I'm also somebody that like especially with my mom, like we had issues when I was younger. Like there was a time where she was like people with unnatural colored hair have mental problems and only want attention from people fucking outside.
Oh
And like
no.
look at my hair and tell me that my mom still has that sentiment.
Right.
My health is my mom. She made such a 180 so hard with my therapist, understand what I was going through and be the mom that I needed, like get better. They employed her to help other parents. Like she doesn't have a degree or nothing. They were just like, you talk to these parents. Please God
We,
help
we need
what
more
you're doing.
parents like you. Well, that's
Like there was
awesome.
a time where like my mom came from a really abusive household too. So like at me when I was at work, she didn't know any better. That's what she did, and she like it sticks with me to this day. And I know my mom's a completely different person, but this one time she said there are two things that really stuck with me. Maybe you shouldn't eat that. You're getting a little chubby, and people don't like when your clothes don't fit well. And then she told me in high school, maybe if you woke up a little bit earlier and put makeup on and looked like you actually cared about yourself, people might want to be your friend. And like she never meant those in hurtful ways. But like to hear that from like your own mom on top of everybody else being like your shit, your shit, your shit. And
Totally.
like I'm in South Florida, so like the look is very like thin, blonde, tan, and like the school that I went to is like in the middle of like rich Jap town, like Jap as in like Jewish American princess. So like I was not rich and I was not the aesthetic. I wore like band t-shirts that were way too big for me and skinny jeans and always had my hair up in a bun and never wore makeup. Like, nobody ever looked at me, and if they did, it was to insult me. Like, I remember being yoga in freshman year. I weighed less than I weigh now. I was only like 140 pounds, and I'm 5'5", so that's not crazy. And some like skinny little girls from like the next row of lockers over were like, oh my god, can you believe that Bunny has to jump into her? That's so sad. She's just so fucking fat. She can't come up. I'm like, it's just.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Oh,
sort of
like,
getting like
ah.
attacked by all sides everywhere.
A lot of people actually find it really funny to do what I do because they're like, if you have such confidence issues with yourself, where does this come? It's a weird duality because like it's taken me a really long time, but at the end of the day, like I know that I'm an attractive person, like in my head, like I understand that, and like especially from like the money that I make, I understand that I'm marketable. It's not like I'm bad looking. Um, but like when you are conditioned your whole life to think differently, it's really hard to give yourself that same value. And
Yeah.
like I want people to know that like even people that seem like they always are like completely in control of themselves and have a presence and are super confident, that doesn't mean that's what's actually going on.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that it's like super common that girls with like crazy confidence issues and crazy abuse backgrounds like like wind up doing sex work and things like that. I guess one thing that I'm curious about is where have you found I mentioned that like you're just sort of getting like hit from all sides in terms of like knocking your confidence down. Where have you found places that lift you up and sort of like make you feel good about yourself? Do you
So
have
it's really
those?
funny because way before I ever sent pictures to anybody that I was flirting with ever, like before I was being a deviant little child, I actually all the time I didn't show them to anybody. I even if it took hours, I would sit there and like try to find at least 3 photos that I was like, I like my body in this. And I just kept doing it. And I constantly had references of myself that I found attractive. It was easier to remind myself because I didn't in my head the only reference I had was like me looking at myself and like looking at myself plainly and being like, this is the thing that everybody has said is ugly for you. And then when I'm actually like, I don't know, it was like almost freeing to like sit in my own sexuality and like take time to like find the things that I did like about myself and that were attractive. Like it starts with little things. Like I like my butt a lot. Nobody can talk shit to me about my butt. Like I have my own confidence issues, but there's literally nothing you can say to me about my butt. Like, you're not gonna
Yeah.
tell me it's not nice. You're not.
So
So,
someone tries to
like
insult your butt, and you're just like, I see you looking
I
like.
see you. Like I can tell that you're lying. But I started with that, and then I was like, okay, I like the way my hips are shaped compared to my waist. Okay, I like the way my back slopes. Okay, I like the way I look when I walk. Like it's just finding like little things, or I like the way my hair falls down my back. Like you, it was constant like reassurance to myself and like forcing myself not only to like look at myself, but to look at myself until I found myself attractive.
Wow.
And then when I went into the BDSM community, I was 18. Like I first started going to parties and stuff. And I tell you, like I essentially the parties that I go to are like kinky raves. Like everybody's dancing and there's music and stuff going on. But, like they do have back rooms, like people, and they have like tables in the middle of the dance floor where like people are getting like flogged or like whipped or tied up and stuff.
Right.
But it's like a lot of people just hanging out and drinking in like kinky outfits and like keeping with each other. And when I tell you, like every single body type, every single color, every single age, every single style you could think of is there. Like
Yeah.
there's a large crowd of old people that go to these parties. And like everybody's body is so celebrated. Everybody is told nobody you will never be told that you're not attractive at one of these parties. Like somebody will find you, somebody will come up to you to tell you how good you look. Like it's just it was such a freeing place. Everybody's like, here's my body and I'm here with it and I like it and you tell me that you don't like it. And like such a freeing thing for me because I remember I went to a convention called Exotica, it's like an adult convention where they have like a bunch of adult performers, and then they have like sex toy brands that are like selling stuff, but they also have a dungeon. And went to the dungeon, and like I saw all these girls walking around in lingerie for the event, and I was like, oh, that's fun. So, like I went in like a crop top and a on Friday, and then when I went back on Sunday, I went in a lingerie bodysuit and like thigh highs, because I was like, this is acceptable here. So I was like, I'm just gonna like feel my fantasy a little bit, and then it led to doing that at parties. And like I also love, like, parties almost always have a theme. Like picking little outfits to like dress up to themes really motivated me, because I had fun putting like outfits together and stuff. But, like when you're just in such an accepting place, that like I said, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what skin color you have, it doesn't matter what body type you have. Like there's just no prejudices. Like you feel active and comfortable. And it's really funny how I said before that I don't like defined spaces and I don't like being around a lot of people. There are two places that I feel comfortable with people all up on my back and it doesn't freak me out. One is my video game bar that I've been going to for 2.5 years, and I know both the owner and all the bartenders really well, so I feel really safe there. Yeah. The other one is fetish parties. Though I don't know a large majority of the people there, I feel incredibly safe knowing that not only do people like praise other people, but they respect their boundaries, because community is so important on consent and on like limits and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm never concerned that somebody's going to touch me inappropriately, that somebody's going to make me uncomfortable. But if it happened, that nothing would be done.
Right. Yeah, and I think that this is a really cool topic to touch on, just in terms of like, I don't know, generally, is that like obviously BDSM gets like a really bad rap for a lot of people. Like so many people think that BDSM is like some sort of like, I don't know, like demonic like thing. And like hearing about your experience of it is such sort of like experiential evidence of like how therapeutic it can be, and like how how empowering it can be. And I think that that's so cool, especially because like you have the duality, like you're expressing both. Like you have the like struggles that definitely comes with like sex work and things like that, and then also the like very freeing like rewarding parts of it. And I think that's amazing. The other thing that I wanted to say that I think is amazing is that like, man, you are such a what's the word I'm looking for? The fact that despite all of this, you were able to like use your own mind to empower yourself through photographs. You were able to like sort of, I don't know, like remove yourself from yourself for a second through photos.
That's exactly what it is. Like I wasn't able to do it until I stopped associating with me. You have such a negative opinion of yourself, it's hard to see anything but negatives. But when you take yourself back and start trying to it out and being like, this feature is attractive, I like the way this thing looks, instead of being like, I'm attractive, and take those pieces and then put it together to move to.
Yeah. And then what about mentally, like physical confidence? Like it seems like you had a really, I'm still sort of blown away by how amazing that is that you did that for yourself. That's so cool. And then what about mentally? Like is that something that you struggled with, or is that something that you also feel like?
I mean, it's something that I struggle with all the time, because like I said, like when I was talking about like my emotional, I worry about making friends, let alone partners, just because of my emotional baggage, let alone physical like health baggage. So like I hold myself back a lot because of those things, and I am sometimes like a scared, like I am a social butterfly, but not by choice. Like my mouth just opens itself and talks to people, but in my head I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna hate me, panic. But like
cool.
Outside I'm like, hey, I love your dress. Like, did you go to my like high school? Like, da 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 da. And I'm like, but at the same time, like, I'll be honest, it took a lot of push to realize what I was not okay with and what I deserve. Because I knew how horrible things made me feel, and when I stopped telling myself that I deserved those things, or that I was only ever going to be miserable, I started putting an end to things that were making me uncomfortable. I didn't let people shove me into trash cans anymore. I didn't let people say nasty things and not say anything. I didn't in holes and wonder what people were thinking of caring what the people that cared about me thought about me. Like, that's another huge thing. Like, I've found a lot of confidence in finding people that are really valuable to me and then being valuable to them. Like, I don't necessarily base my value on how valuable I can be to somebody else. But when you find a valuable person and they also find you valuable, there has to be something good about you that is like worth you being like having that kind of friendship, being in that kind of person's life. And you can't lie to yourself and tell you that you're not a good person, that you don't deserve friends when something like that is so in your face.
Totally. So, for the first time, I heard you bring up what you wrote on your Google Doc that you submitted to me, which I was really curious to talk about, because I think that in terms of connecting with people, and I'm speaking from personal experience because I also have this, I think that intrusive thoughts, which is what you wrote on your Google Doc, is a huge hindrance, a huge wall, that just like constantly, one of my most sort of prolific intrusive thoughts is like all your friends secretly hate you. And so like I'll be talking with someone, I'll be like hanging out with someone, and like one little thing will just be a little bit off. Like I'll be like, "Did you have fun?" And they'll be like, "Sure."
Like
And
they
I'm like,
respond a little differently, and you're like,
"What's going on? You hate me. Why do you hate me?" So I wanted to dig into that a little bit, because I think that I confess that I did a little. I was really nervous about today, and so I did a little research into intrusive thoughts, and like and have some thoughts on it that I think might be interesting. But I'd like to hear from you. Like what sort of goes on in your brain when the, like, first of all, what those intrusive thoughts are, and second of all, like what happens when they come up.
"Oh, my intrusive thoughts, like two different things. There's like ones that come when I try to block myself from happiness. uh, ones that just like random. I unfortunately have been a lot of misfortunes in the last few years. I have things all the time where my brain is like, your parents are gonna die soon. You were on the phone for 3 years talking to people who lost their parents that were in their 50s or younger than that. Your parents are going to die. They're everything to you, but they're going to die, and you're not spending enough time with them. You're not doing this. Why are you letting your dad go out and drive in the rain? What if he gets in a car accident?" It's like, I don't need to be doing all that. My parents are relatively healthy people, and like nobody in their family really died early for no reason. But like, because my mom got hit by a car and got hurt, because my parents got in a car accident last year, because my dad got in a fight at his job and somebody broke his nose, like stuff like that, like puts me on edge, and then I escalate. Or like sometimes I haven't gone to college yet. I worked for 3 years for like lawyers, and I was making a really good salary, and I was trying to save up from school. And then like my car shit on me, so I had to buy a new car. I was out for a year on medical leave because I literally couldn't get out of the bed in the morning. My heart pressure, like my blood pressure was so low that if I tried to stand up, I was going to pass out. So after that, then COVID happened. So it was like, I'm not going to school as an immunologist, and that's a terrible idea.
Right.
So I definitely get on myself sometimes, feeling like I'm a lot farther behind other people my age. Like I know people that are like 19 and 20, like have their own apartments. I'm like, I still live at home because I have a heart condition that if I passed out and someone didn't find me, I'd die. Because like it happened to me. Like I fell into my laundry basket and kind of did a flip. I was like laying up in my laundry basket like this, passed out, and my pressure got so low that I almost fell into a coma. And that's something that is like an actual risk. Like if I passed out and slumped against a wall, if they had found me maybe 20 minutes later, I could be like out, and we don't know if I'm waking up. Like it's just not safe for me to live alone. And like
Right.
it definitely like gets in my head a lot between like being physically like having so many health issues at a young age, but also feeling like I'm so hindered because of those things. Like it sometimes it's just like out of nowhere. Oh, you're not doing enough. Oh, you're a failure. Oh, look at all these other things that other people are doing. and it is a really hard thing to get out of. My therapist that I'm working with now, and I appreciate her specifically. Like I've worked with a lot of different therapists. When you have chronic illness, it's really hard to understand no matter how much you explain it to somebody else unless you physically have chronic illness. Like there's no
Totally.
way for somebody to understand like how tired my body is and how taxing like just getting out of bed can be on certain days. I have my heart condition, but I also have fibromyalgia, which if anybody's not familiar with, it's essentially what they give you when they can't give you a real diagnosis, but it's chronic body pain everywhere for no reason. And like it got to the point where in high school, like my knees would swell up so bad from the pain that they would lock, and I physically could not get up. So it's like I definitely get in my head about that a lot, and like I get upset with myself, and I'm like, can my body just like work? Can I just like not functioning like 22-year-old? Like this is too young for you. But my therapist taught me this thing that I really like. It's so we have everybody gets a different box. You essentially have to pick a box. And this box you lock on or some like locking mechanism on, and it's where you put things that you don't want to deal with at the moment. Things you either don't want to talk about or things you can come back to. Like for me, my box is an old timey safe because like I love them like with the big like cranks on them and everything. I'm like I feel like that's secure as fuck. Like when I'm upset, when I'm upset thinking about my health, I picture myself in a hospital bed and then I shove that in the box and I lock the box. After you lock the box, you have to go to whatever you think is your happy place. A bunch of different things. For me, it's my grandma's house that I grew up in. So I walk through and I can see, and you start with like 5 things you can see. I can see the mint carpet that she had in the living room. I can see the tiles in the kitchen. I can see the stairs down to the basement, that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's kind of like a senses thing, so it's like things you can see, hear, touch, feel, smell. Totally. And it really, like, when you take the time to physically be like, I'm taking this thing and I'm separating myself from it and I'm not going to deal with it for a minute, and then putting yourself in a calming situation by like, you, like sometimes just thinking about a place you like isn't enough, but like when you are forced to do like the census things, you really put your head in it. It's almost like you're there. Like I really can feel like I'm walking through my grandma's house when I think. I think it's a really good thing. Like everybody has like different techniques. I know it's something that I have intrusive thoughts and stuff. It's put in the box, deal with it later. Because a lot of times when they happen, they just keep getting worse because you're already in such a bad headspace. You're just telling yourself worse things. Like if I sit there and start on like one thing that I'm not happy with about myself and the progress I'm not making, I'm just going to keep telling myself how I'm not happy with the progress I'm making. But when I come back to it later and I'm not upset, I can realize I was just going through it. I was upset instead of tunneling myself.
And so what happens to the things in the box?
So they either never exist, they disappear in a black hole and they never come back, or you take it out of the box. Like, it's not a cure-all. Like, when everything happened with Seth, I shoved his dumb face in the box. I did. Yeah. And I was at, like, a 9 when I was talking to him. But I was at maybe, like, a 3 once I put him in the box. I was still hurting, and I still wanted to cry, but I felt like I wasn't so, like, completely overwhelmed by what just happened. Sometimes that's all you need. You just need to break yourself out of it a little bit so you don't fucking spiral.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it sounds like a good coping mechanism. Something that like when like you just cannot handle it, it's something to sort of like take a rest and be able to and I guess what's interesting to me is that from my own experience and from like the research that I've done, I've found that the intrusive thoughts tend to come from things that are suppressed. So a lot of the time what will happen with abusive situations is that whenever we experience that trauma, we sort of get frozen. A part of us sort of gets frozen in that time, like whatever age you were or whatever, and the part of you gets frozen with all of the sort of like fears and insecurities and coping mechanisms that went along with that time. And so, for instance, like what you've been saying about like how like every time I go out, I'm like, oh, like they're just gonna there's no point in connecting because they're just gonna leave me afterward. Like that is a perfect example of a little you inside that's sort of like frozen and like when those situations happen, they get activated and send like a little pop-up message to your brain and are like, hey, don't
Absolutely.
do this.
Like
We've
that
been
little
there.
kid that got picked on all through elementary school. She's going, "Hey, remember those kids that picked on you? Don't talk to that cool person at the bar. They're probably not gonna like you either."
Exactly. Exactly. And so one of the things that my therapist works with me a lot on is starting to have like very active conversations with those little yous. And it sounds really weird. It sounds sort of hippy
I
dippy.
really like the thought of it. I'm very interested to hear how your therapist talks. That's
Yeah, yeah. So like the way that she usually describes it to like most people is that there's sort of like a council table, okay? Like in Star Wars or something, okay? And you have all of your little yous sitting around this council table, and then you have the current you sitting at that council table as well. And a lot of times what happens in these situations is that the little yous are running the show because they are angry and scared and don't feel heard and are just running rampant. Um, and uh, what I have learned from my therapist and from various other sources is that now that you are an adult, obviously, you know, like there's always still growth to do. But now that you are an adult, um, you can sort of be the person that those little yous needed for yourself. You know what I mean? And so like a interesting example is for the for the girl who talked about going through sexual abuse and then just got, like completely railed on and completely like told everyone or like completely shut down, like all those different little yous, like sort of doing a mental exercise of like sitting down with them and saying like, hey, uh I totally understand what you went through, and like I'm so sorry that you went through that, and like showing that like compassion to yourself in that like little you. And obviously, it can help when other people do this too. But showing that compassion to yourself for your little you, what starts to happen over time, and again, like this is something that I've personally experienced. What starts to happen over time is that the little yous start to trust you more. And so when they send up those pop-up messages and like they start to like run around the conference table or like, no, this is terrible, we've had this situation before. What happens is as the adult you can say, hey, like it's okay, I've got this. I know what's going on, we're safe, it's okay, everything's safe. And at first, what's going to happen is the little user going to say, screw you, you don't know what you're talking about. I trusted people in the past, and it didn't freaking work out, okay? It never freaking worked out. But the more that you are able to sort of show up for your little yous and, like, show them that you do know what you're doing, because you're a heckin' badass who has spiky heels, the more that you can do that, and the more that they see that, the more that they will be like, oh, okay, bunny, all right. All right, I'll try sitting down at the table. And every time that you prove to them that you can come through in that way, they're gonna get less and less. They're gonna get more and more trustful, and they're gonna get less and less rambunctious. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think that's a great sentiment. A good thing. I think I've done it in ways without realizing that's what I was doing.
Totally.
Because there, like, one of those little me long time that doesn't really bother me anymore is a little me that like hated my skin and like just wanted to not have it because of being assaulted. Like it would be like, you don't belong. Like there were days where like I literally like went psychotic and scratched myself raw because I was so mentally unwell that I felt like I needed my security hurting me. And like there are times like even in COVID, like it pisses me off. Like I have people like run their hands across my back, or like I was leaving the hair salon the other day. Like I got my hair washed, and this lady who didn't know me grabbed me by my wrist to stop me as I was leaving the salon, like, asking me about like the physical therapy tape I had on my back. But like in my head, me panic was like panic, panic. But it like I had a really hard time for a really long time, everything that happened, obviously. And like I kind of told myself any sexual like interactions that I had were never going to be pleasurable, and it was always going to make me think of those things, and like, I was always going to have acts. And like with physical stuff, like obviously I told you I'm still claustrophobic, so I have that issue sometimes. But like, and I've known Seth for 6 years, and when he came and saw me in December, like there was a little girl in my head that was like, you don't let him touch you. What the fuck are you doing? But I was able to talk to her and be like, hey, Seth, for 6 years, been with him physically before, you know he's not going to hurt. You know that you're not going to feel disgusting.
Yeah.
And like I still have to fight with her sometimes. That's a little me that I calmed.
Totally, yeah. And I'm not at all surprised that you've already done it, because, like I said, the sort of like mental gymnastics that you went through of sort of like boosting yourself up physically is so impressive to me that it doesn't surprise me that you sort of naturally sort of do these things and have an understanding of these things. And by the way, I just want to say I have not been through any sort of like physical or sexual abuse, thank goodness. And if somebody grabbed my wrist as I was walking out to try to stop me, that would bother me too. I'm like, excuse me? Excuse me? Why are, and like not like if you like, you know, tapped me on the shoulder or something, like okay, like I can get it.
Like,
but
I'm
grabbing my
walking,
wrist?
you grabbed my wrist to stop me.
No. Please. Ugh, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. So yeah, so I don't know if as you I don't know if sort of like have it for me at least, sometimes having sort of like a concrete thing, a concrete sort of like view of something that I was sort of doing naturally can sometimes make the process like a little bit easier, and a little bit like I can practice it more actively, and that can sometimes be really really powerful for me. I don't know if that's true for you, but I hope that it offers you something. What was that?
Like, give me an example of this in your.
So the example that I'm referring to right now is like the fact that you've been doing this naturally, and now like having this sort of like visualization available to you might be helpful in some way, and it might not. But my hope is that even though you've sort of been doing this naturally, that now I think from talking to you for this hour and 13 minutes so far, I've come to understand that you are really really good at a lot of the physical stuff. You're really good at like working through a lot of the physical stuff, and the mental stuff is a little bit harder. And I think that what's interesting is that the exercises that you've done for the physical stuff, like working through dealing with like the feelings that come up when you experience, you know, like somebody too close or crowded places, can also be applied directly over to the mental stuff. I know how capable you are, and I know how strong you are, just from, you know, knowing you for a little bit before this, and then also from talking to you. And so I just have complete confidence and excitement about the idea of you you not having to deal with or not having to deal with, I think it's always there, but you being able to connect with people in the you feeling like you can connect with people out in the world in a without having to suffer through all of the, like being cut off, because I know how incredibly isolating that is, and I go through it too. Not to the same extent, I don't think. But definitely also, like, I'm a hardcore hermit and I don't like going outside.
When you live in your experience, if that's like the hardest thing you've been through, then that's gonna feel super painful. Like been through those things, and I don't like when you any kind of like level of bullying or like disassociation, it doesn't matter how long it was for, it leaves a resounding effect.
Yeah.
Like when another human comes negatively or somebody else goes out of their way to put you down, like it will always sit with you.
Yeah.
So, like it doesn't matter that it happened to me. Like I know a girl that started getting bullied in high school because she did not come into puberty very well, and she hadn't previously before that. She still has body image issues worse than I ever did. So it's just such a subject. I mean, there's like you have to be like reasonable, like want to kill yourself because you broke a nail, but like you can't tell someone they shouldn't be so upset that they're considering suicide because they broke up with a partner. They might not see it as such an important thing in their life, but that could be something that like their partner could have been holding them together. It could have been the one thing that like made them feel comfortable. So I don't know how much that hurt. Obviously you don't want them to continue on that path, but they have like every right to feel that upset. Just because they don't consider a breakup to be like a hard enough thing doesn't mean that them being that hurt by it is any less bad.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think that a really interesting and really harmful thing that people have started doing is sort of like the way that Dr. K put it was like gatekeeping suffering, which is like people are like, you're not allowed to suffer because you haven't been through the hard stuff, like you haven't.
Or like the one-uppers that are like, but I had like this, like your mom might have hit you, but like my mom still hits me. Or like you might have been like raped once, but like my dad abused for 3 years.
Right.
Like that, it doesn't matter. Like you should be empathetic to somebody else that has experienced similar pain than you, instead of trying to like invalidate the pain that they went through.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said. And so yeah, like I think that
wow, incredibly juicy.
My sub-alert is going off right now. I had the thought that this could happen, and didn't that an alert could go off, and did not at all expect it to ever actually happen, and it totally did, and I don't understand why, because I'm looking at Streamlabs right now and I don't see any alert. Did somebody become a patron? What is going on? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what just happened. Anyway, I'm gonna mute my alerts now so that doesn't ever happen again.
Get her stuffy.
Yeah, she did. Did you get her Discord video?
I'm downloading.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, like like quick intermission. I think I'm actually gonna run and go to the bathroom real quick, and then I'll be right back. And you watch that video because she showed it to me. And it's super heckin' cute.
Shall.
Be right back. Did you like the video?
So it's only giving me the audio. It's not giving me the video portion of it.
Oh no. Maybe I'll have to like send it to you some other way or something. Maybe I'll like upload it to the Google Drive.
I tried opening it on my phone on Discord, and I tried opening it on my computer. And like on my computer, it said like this file is not compatible or some dumb shit.
That's
and then
weird.
When I click it on Discord, it like pulls up the video, and then it does that.
That's so weird. Yeah, maybe I'll have to send it to you some other way. Maybe I'll like upload it to the, I don't know. Maybe I'll upload it somewhere and then send you like a private link or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's weird. Okay, so I like going to the bathroom and like showering and stuff because it always sort of gives me a chance to think. And I was thinking while I was peeing about how I think that one thing I definitely want to I don't know, like try to provide some value on is what you first brought up, which is about Seth just like disappearing. And there's two things I want to say about it. The first thing is that I think that mourning is an incredibly important experience, and so I think that like just giving yourself the time to like when you're ready to like take Seth out of the box and just, you know, experience that, sit with that for a little while, is super important and something that should happen. And then the second thing about it is like my directing teacher said something that was really, really impactful to me right before I left college, because I was really scared, you know, that like I might be making the wrong decision or whatever. And he said, I have firmly come to believe that we wind up where we're supposed to be in life. And so, and he talked about it in sort of the same way that I've been talking about a lot of this stuff, which is that it wasn't like it wasn't some like, you know, religious faith of his that he thought that people ended up where they were supposed to be. It was an experiential thing for him, that things would like go wrong in his life, and then it would end up that he ended up somewhere that he didn't expect, but that was really good for him. And so I guess my why I bring it up is because I think that once you go through the mourning process and you know, like deal with all the pain that it causes, which heckin' sucks, I think that you'll wind up in a really beautiful place, and that like this door closing will like open another that is really beautiful. And I think that I don't know, I think that sounds a little contrived or like trite or like
like I have been telling myself like over and over again that it's good that I didn't marry Seth when he was a member, because I could be packing my fucking bags right now and moving back to Florida after moving all of my shit to Kentucky and
right
how much money, and that like in general he could have. The big thing for me was I got hit really hard with who is gonna want you with all of your issues. It's continuously telling myself that like there are people in my life that see my value, and it might be in a romantic sense, but like I know that I'm a good friend and I'm a good partner. That I try really hard for the people that I care about, and that should be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I mean I think that you summed it up really beautifully. That like and again, like this seems like you sort of naturally talking with your younger selves, which I think is so cool that you do these things so naturally. That the way that you show up for people, like even in terms of the way that I've seen that you honor your commitments, and like show up for your friends, is really heckin' admirable, and like, you know, how much you care is really heckin' admirable, and something that is hard to find in a lot of people. And so yeah, I think that the you know, like who's gonna want you with all this stuff is definitely like a seed that was a bad seed that was planted in you, that you are in the process of sort of casting out.
No shit, get it out of there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weed, and you're picking it and getting rid of it. And I think that's great work to do. And I think that the one thing that I would be careful of is that safe getting too full. Like whenever you.
Yeah, no, obviously, like I would say like 90% of things that go into the safe come out of the safe and are talked about when I'm less upset. Like Seth has come out of the safe multiple times. I've talked to my therapist. Like I don't even like. I've even like separated the Seth is no longer in the safe. I'm not really upset with him. What's in the safe is like me dealing with being and like me thinking that I'm not enough and no one loves me. So like I'm essentially shoving sad little me that's telling me lies into the mouth.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting for me to think about like a young little you and like you picking her up and being like, all right, get in the safe, spin it closed, lock it down.
Pick her up by her dress with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool.
I can't believe I just into the safe. Nothing goes nicely. I'm punting it. I'm throwing it. It's getting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really interesting image to me. And like, do you experience anything in terms of like when you bring things back out of the safe? Are they ever like mad at you for putting them in the safe?
Not something that I've personally experienced yet, but it's not something I would put myself above. I like regretted that I like had thoughts. Like I'm like, why did you even have to put this in the safe in the first place? Like, why did you deal with it? But like, it's not like I shove like insecure me in the safe and then insecure me comes out and is like, what the fuck do you think you were doing?
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So one of the things that that I think is super underutilized in like Western sort of like philosophy and is really utilized a lot in Eastern philosophies is the idea of acceptance. I think that like in Western philosophy there's a lot of like black and white. There's a lot of like good and bad, right and wrong, and that sort of thing. And I think that in a lot of Eastern philosophies they much more like embrace the idea that you have to accept yourself wholly in order to like overcome the things that you're trying to overcome. So let me get a little bit more specific. When thoughts rise up and you have the thought of like, oh, like I shouldn't even be like having that thought. I think it can be really, really powerful to like tell yourself like, no, like it's okay that I'm having that thought. A really good example is like, let's say somebody beats themselves up all the time and they're trying to stop beating themselves up. A lot of the time what'll happen is the way that they'll try to do that is by beating themselves up.
Beating themselves up.
Right. And so it just continues the cycle. It doesn't actually fix anything. And so I think that the more that you can, when those thoughts rise up that you want to put in the safe, the more that you can say like, no, like it's okay that I'm having this thought, and just sort of like the way that I've explained it to a friend of mine is that I think that we view a lot of our problems as like demons, right? We view them as like these like black monsters. And the more that we can view them as parts of ourselves to have conversations with, the more amenable they'll be. Like the more likely they'll be to like want to work with us. And just because, go ahead.
Oh, well, finish what you were gonna say.
No, you go ahead. Mine is like a tangent and like a nerd story. So I want to what you have to say is much more important. Please go ahead.
Now I like lost my. What were you talking about? I'm the worst.
I was talking about the more that you can like have those thoughts come up and not treat them like monsters and etc.
So as someone that is very often like an emotional support for other people, like I find myself like being a therapist of people and stuff, I've like realized how important just straight validation is, and that people like don't realize how much that can feel. Like I know like 80% of the time when I like go to my mom or my sister about something that I'm upset about, I started off with, I know you want to help me, but I'm not looking for solutions right now. Please just agree with me that it's okay that I'm upset.
Totally.
And like that's all I need, because I can complain. Just hearing somebody else say it's okay that you feel that way or you're not crazy can do so much for someone. So, like
Right.
one of like the like quotes that has like essentially become part of like my pick me up speech is everything that you're feeling right now is validated.
Right.
That you shouldn't like emotions that you are having are valid. It's
Yeah.
like when you tell somebody like because I find that people a lot of times like because you care about the person, you don't want them to be upset. You just try to like problem solve, and like I know personally it can be overwhelming because sometimes it feels like the person is telling you all the things that you should have been doing to not have this problem, or
Right.
like where you went wrong. In that moment, you're not ready to handle what you should have done differently. Somebody to like be there for you in the fact that you're upset. Just
Yeah.
having somebody say yes, it makes sense that you're upset. You should be allowed to feel these feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. And so is that thought coming up in relation to like you thinking like, oh, like I can do that for myself too, or is that thought coming up in terms of like our dynamic right now?
It's definitely something that I have to work on for myself more, obviously. But like, it's something that like I guess with more major things in my life, I, I like nobody's perfect. Everybody has moments they fuck up. There's nothing wrong with me for feeling this way. It's completely valid. But like, I have moments, especially with my health. That's probably the thing that upsets me the most. Or I'm just like when I can't get out of bed, or like there was a time where like it was maybe like a month and a half ago. My sister and my mom were like an hour away having brunch. I got dizzy in the kitchen. I laid on the cold tile floor in the kitchen 2.5 hours. I literally could not sit up enough to get my medication.
Yeah.
So like my body was hurting after that, and I was just really fucking sore. And like when my mom peeled me off the ground, for a moment I was like, this is so fucking dumb. Why can't I just be like normal? Like this really fucking sucks. And then I got mad at myself. And I'm like, why are you beating yourself up over this? You have like no control over your body. Like stop bitching. And then I was like, no, I'm allowed to bitch. This is something to be upset about.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I think that's really beautiful done, really beautifully done. The story that I wanted to tell you is sort of like it's like a Buddhist what's the word I'm looking for, like a Buddhist allegory sort of. So there's Mr. Fox and Mr. Turtle. And Mr. Fox sees Mr. Turtle and says, "Ooh, lunch." And Mr. Turtle says, "Oh no, I'm not strong enough to fight Mr. Fox. I'm not fast enough to run away from Mr. Fox." So instead, he goes into his shell and just sort of exists there with Mr. Fox. And Mr. Fox walks around for waiting for him to come out, and eventually, when Mr. Fox feels like he's not going to get any food, he walks away. And that's the end of it. Mr. Turtle comes out of his shell and is fine. And so the sort of idea of this story is not to sort of like, shell from your problems, but that the more that we change our relationship with our problems, the more that we sort of like don't try to run from them, don't try to fight them, the more that they just sort of go away by themselves. And I really think that I don't know, I nerd out about that story every time. I saw it. There's a Netflix documentary series called Explained, and this one is like a subset of that series called The Mind Explained. And there's one on mindfulness, and they have this really cool like animation during it of like, I don't know, this sort of like traditional like Japanese art that's really pretty. And it sort of walks you through that story. But anyway, I just think it's a cool sort of representation of that idea that we're talking about. And like I said, like it sounds like you already have a sense of it and do it well and often. And we all fall into pitfalls.
Of therapy would have paid off somehow.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so happy to hear that they have, because I feel like I I just hear so many horror stories of people like going into therapy and winding up with like bad therapists and getting like terrible advice.
Yeah,
And
so
so
I've had like a hand bad therapy, but like I also had a bunch of
yeah.
I
And
definitely know people that have had really shitty therapists that did nothing for them.
yeah. Or worse, did damage to them. Like didn't just do nothing for them, but actually did damage. And so like as like myself, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think that even if you feel like you're in like really good shape and everything, I still think you should go to therapy just to sort of like get your like hinges oiled regularly, you
There's
know?
always something that like you can't talk to the people that you care about with, and you need that outlet to get everything.
Right. I think it's so valuable, and so hearing again, like there's always sort of two parts going on in. I mean, I'm speaking generally, even though this is the first time I've ever done this, but there's always sort of two parts in my mind going on when I'm having these conversations, and like one of them is, and like the most important one really is like helping the person that I'm talking with, and then the second one is like help, I don't know, helping the world in some way. And so there have been so many instances throughout this conversation where you've really beautifully illustrated like, I don't know, some sort of like stigma, and did a beautiful job of like showing how it's not true, or like showing the value in something that a lot of people demonize or whatever. And I'm grateful for that, and I think that's really cool. So that being said, I I I I feel pretty good, like in terms of like what we've covered. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Anything else that you feel like didn't get touched on? Something that you'd like to talk about more? You didn't feel like we like worked through all the way? Has this been helpful for you?
Absolutely, it's nice to just talk to someone about it, you
Totally.
know, and like it like I said, validation does like so much you don't realize for just like confirming that like another person that I consider like a functioning person of society like does shit with their life can like agree that they go through similar things. It's like, okay, I'm not fucking losing it. And
Totally.
adults that seem like they're adulting have shit going on.
Yeah. 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 It's wild to me how prevalent it is where people are horribly worried that that they're going crazy, or that like that what they're experiencing is strange and unusual, and that no one else is experiencing it. And I think that that is one of the things that is so powerful about this, is that people not only can you and I have that experience like in the room together right now, but also people who watch this can also have that experience. It's like when I was younger, I was super ashamed that I masturbated because I thought that I was the only one who did that, and then I found out that everyone does that, and I was like, oh. So yeah, so cool. I'm glad. Crap. There's something that I thought of while I was talking that I thought I should talk to you more about, and then I forgot it. Maybe it'll come back to me. Maybe not. Maybe
Talking
we'll just...
about how like people that like experiences that we're talking about don't necessarily just relate to like, me.
Yeah,
Or,
you were talking about that you don't feel crazy,
yeah,
and that's
station goes
good.
really long way for people, and it's nice to like feel like somebody that you are functioning and like agree with you. Like if you're like, oh, this person is like doing shit with their life, so like if they have problems and they're doing shit, I can
That's
have
it.
problems and do
Thank you.
shit.
You did it. Um, I just wanted to say, and again, I don't know. This might feel sort of like anecdotal or something, but I just wanted to say that there is definitely a America is capitalist, right? The world is capitalist at this point, and so like everything feels like a race, and everything feels like like, you know, I should be doing this. I need to get here. I need to push forward more. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with that. The first thing is that rates of growth in humans are not at all like linear. And what I mean by it seems like
not like you keep going up. There's like downs and then up.
Not even that, but just like like for instance, with me, my brother had a job way before I did and moved out way before I did and was touring the country on national tours, you know, like doing musicals and stuff before I had even moved out of the house. And now, I like last time he visited, it was very sort of, it felt really good for me because basically the entire visit was him being like, God, you have your life so together. And he was like, I so don't. And that's the first thing. And again, like why you're smart. I think you know why I'm saying that. But why I'm saying that is that like, even if you feel like you're behind, whatever that means now, it really means nothing, because it's very possible that all of those people who you feel like they have it together now, won't have it together later, and you will be in a place that you feel very together. Not to bash anyone else, but just that you never know where you're gonna end up.
Even if somebody else isn't necessarily in a worse place, like it was something that I talked to my therapist about, because like one of the things I get on myself is that I like belong to get to school. I told myself I was only gonna work for a year and then I had a really bad concussion. Because of me passing out all the time, I've had a lot of concussions over time. Like the worst one was freshman year. I had a panic attack in a bathroom. I passed out with my head in between the toilet and the wall. We're like this close to each other. I had a seizure, so my head went like this. And it literally took me 9 months to learn to walk, talk, read, like again. Like I couldn't walk without falling over myself. I couldn't write my own name straight. Like it was like whole thing.
Man.
So
yeah. And so that actually leads perfectly. Go ahead.
What were you gonna say? It leads perfectly. I can't remember where I was going with that, but I guess like what I was trying to say is like sometimes like shit happens, and my therapist was telling me like she makes decent money now. Like she has a private practice and stuff, but she didn't get her master's till she was 32, and it's because she also is somebody that has a chronic health condition. Literally, she has lupus really bad, so she was literally a kid in a bubble until she was 8. Like straight up a kid in a bubble, like
crazy.
In the movies, plastic wrap, everything.
Yeah,
she had to live like that. Just because she had health issues, it set her back, and she had to be in the hospital for a while. Like she spent like 2 years off college, like going to an assload of different doctors before she finally figured out that she had lupus. But even though she didn't get her degree until she was 32, she's 50 now. She never has to worry about bills. She really enjoys the life that she has. She's on par with everybody else that she grew up with. It's just her life had things that were going to go on. We're going to take time for her to get to where she needed to go.
Yeah. And so that leads perfectly into what I was going to say, is which is that where you are, considering what you've dealt with, is actually incredible. And I know that I would always get pissed at my parents, because like I would show them like something that I wrote, and they'd be like, "Wow, this is really good." And then I'd be like, "Yeah, but is it publishable?" And they'd be like, "Tech, you're 10." And I'd be like, "Why are you saying it's good if it's not publishable? I want the truth." And that's still something that I struggle with. But what I will say to someone outside of myself, because I don't hold others to the same standard that I do, is that the fact that like I've never had to deal with like relearning to walk or relearning to read. That's insane. Like, that's unbelievable. That's such an unbelievable struggle. And you're still kicking ass and wearing spiky heels. So, like, I just think that one, like, obviously, like we talked about, like, not treating them as monsters. But then two, like, anytime those thoughts arise, be like, bitch, do you...
do you know what I've done?
Do you know who I am? Like, so yeah. So I think that you're a lot more powerful than you think sometimes. And I know, you know, I think that is true of me too. And in my darkest moments, I think that I'm a little husk of a human being. But just you know, validation helps, as you've said. So just know that you kick ass. Yeah. Yeah.
I try.
Yeah. All right. How do you feel? Does this feel good?
I do.
Okay, good. All right. I have a phobia that I will have one of these sessions and I'll just like unpack something that like
just like destroy someone, like rip open a Band-Aid that like should have
I'm
not been touched.
I'm not equipped for at all, and like I'll be like, I don't know, so yeah, so good, I'm glad. Well, thank you.
Like they grew up in like a horrific like cult with like all of these things, and they have all, and you're like, I don't know how to help you when they sacrifice lambs when you were 4 years old.
Yeah. So thank you so much for doing this with me. It was really nice for me, and I hope like I mean, you said that, you know, it made you feel sort of validated, which is good, and I hope that it hopefully got like provided you some nice tools or something. I don't know, or if the validation, that's great too. So anyway, yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you asking me and you being comfortable enough with me to talk to.
Of course, yeah. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Are you ready? Goodbye.